I've been thinking a lot about truth lately and how hard it is to get at truth, because particularly with the internet, when you can get information from all kinds of sources, and unless you really know how to dig, it's hard to know whether you're getting the truth. One of the given truths in my field is, and it's been going, I mean, it's one of the first things I learned when I came into nutrition, is there's this, and there's a graph, they used to do graphs on the board showing the race between food production and population growth, and that we were going to run out of food. And I'm sure everybody's heard that before, lots of times. And now we're hearing it all the time. You know, we have to feed 9 billion people before the turn of the century, maybe 10 billion. And so we, therefore, organic's okay, but it's not, you know, it's a backyard hobby. It's not really feeding. It's only feeding a small group of people, can only feed a small group of people. And we have to use biotechnology, which is very new productive technology, which will help feed the world. I had just read, not too long ago, a very brilliant piece. I think the title of it was How to Feed the World, and it's by someone who I believe is a professor at Cornell. And he said basically, the way we can begin to really change things is to convince people that that's a lie, that the feeding the 9 billion people is not the problem. I mean, it is a problem, but the problem is not producing enough food. We already produce enough food for 10 billion people. If we cut down somewhat on feeding grain to animals, if we wasted less food, even at that, it gets wasted. We waste a third of our food. So the issue of producing more food is not really the problem. But I teach a graduate class on nutrition and the environment, and I've done it for years. And the last two sessions that I taught were called information pollution, which is about how hard it is to get at the truth because people are busy trying to feed you other information. And the last session was on agriculture. And because I've taught this course for maybe 40 years, and I came up with a really interesting analysis of what agriculture is for and how it works, and I was sick of it. So I thought I'd wing it. I thought I'd just do what I used to do a lot, which is to walk the students through the readings and pick up particular things that they should notice. And because I was doing that, I noticed for the very first time, and I had this other thing on my mind, that one of the articles, which I've used since the course began, from a 1970 issue of National Geographic, called, I wrote it down, oh no, I didn't write it down. Okay, it's called something like the Future of Agriculture, or Agriculture of the Future. And it's a paean of praise to modern agriculture, to the increasing use of electricity, how they have heated hog farrowing pens, and they heat the chicken houses, and how they have, there's one phrase I remember, that pesticides pop from the laboratories. And it's like, it's the beginning of everything. Well, it isn't the beginning, it's like halfway through, but it's just this ecstatic praise. And I was reading through, and there I found this thing. And on the page 2 of the, well, this is very cut. I used this in a book of mine called The Feeding Web as one of the readings. And the National Geographic would only let you use their stuff 500 words. So I took this huge article with all these pictures and cut it down to 500 words. So it's page 2 of my article. And it's talking about research and development and all this stuff. And it says, the incredible productivity of man and land yields bumper crops that make surpluses a problem. And on the very same page, the last paragraph is, Earth's numbers now stand at 3.6 billion and could double in 35 years. Pretty good prediction. It's pretty close to what it was. This mounting pressure against food supplies raises the specter of famine more catastrophic than the world has ever seen. And then it goes on to say, already constant hunger and malnutrition is a lot of half the world's, I don't know what the end of it is. I don't have it here. And I thought, that's amazing. On the same page. And that's exactly what you could find if you look carefully now. India, this article I referred to earlier points out that India has surpluses. It exports grain, and it has millions of hungry people. So why doesn't anyone notice that this is all a construction which is necessary in a capitalist society because you have to keep growing. If you don't keep growing, you die. So you have to keep producing more and more and more because that's the way people make money. And so you have to convince people that the problem is one of shortages. If you finally get through to them that the problem is one of poverty, and the reason people are hungry is not because there's not enough food. Most of the countries, this article I referred to earlier, goes through a series of countries, and almost every country in the world, which is something that Francis Moore-Lappé and Joe Collins discovered, 25 years ago, that almost every country can produce enough food to feed itself. And the reason the people are going hungry is because of injustice. It's because half the people don't have enough money to buy food. And almost none of the proposed solutions to producing more food would in any way change that. In fact, they'd make it worse, because usually they're saying you should scale up and make larger farms. In fact, somebody just recommended that Britain do that they move in the direction of confinement hog feeding, all these horrible things that we've produced with presumably to produce more food. But really, confinement feeding of hogs and feeding of cattle in feedlots, it was partly a way of getting rid of our corn. We had so much corn, and now we're making fuel out of it because we also have so much corn. So we really have to be extremely careful not to keep getting trapped into this myth that the solution to hunger in this country is to produce more food, because that's not it. We produce more food than the farmers know what to do with.